weather right now.
Yeah, supposed to cool off a little bit the next couple of days, they say. Up here, we're going to get the marine line coming in, which will cool things down a bit, we hope.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's not crazy, but they said yesterday, I think Palm Springs had the hottest temperature on record, 123 degrees. I'm like, oh, my housemate moved there. I'm like, you really want to do that?
No, I think things melt. People and clothing and tires.
It's like, you want to get in a car in that temperature? No, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, boy.
Well, here we are. Let's
Indeed.
talk about dating on Going Solo Media, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network with Barry Selby and Christine Baumgartner. How are you today, Barry?
I'm good. How are you, Christina?
I'm good. At least we're indoors, right? Because we were saying it's so darn hot outside.
Yeah.
And poor Cece's saying they're having pouring rain in Florida.
Welcome to the current summer conditions. It's not the ideal.
No. Maybe it's better somewhere in the middle.
Well, you could say it's almost like it could be worse somewhere else. However, it still doesn't make it any easier.
No. So today we're going to talk about, are you sabotaging your love life?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that people aren't conscious of it. They don't really realize it. They think it's outside circumstances, and often it's the other person, and that they don't have any control over it. It's just happening to them.
Right.
So I think we're going to show a lot of things that people do have control over, and now that you'll know it, you can do something about it.
It's funny when you said that, I'm like seeing these words like in headlines coming like victim, self-sabotage, unconscious.
Yes.
It's funny because there's so much in the conversation I have with clients, and then also when I'm on Clubhouse, and I hear people say stuff, and part of me goes, okay, I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is. I've been there, done that, So the thing about this stuff is most of the sabotage is subconscious. I have my S's mixed up, and the recognition about how, first of all, it's like we're going to talk about awareness, obviously, because you've got to be aware of what you're doing, otherwise you'll never change anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep on its own. But then what do you do about it? So this, and it's funny because this really leads on from our conversation last week, although it wasn't tied to what we said last week. So that's interesting. The fact that we're sort of, it's like, what I love it, frankly, just to be transparent, is I love how the topics seem to feed the next one, and they fit together so well.
Yeah, very much.
So by the way, quick plug: if you haven't seen our shows, make sure you do watch them. They're on YouTube and on Facebook. Definitely want to get those because we've covered some pretty good topics the last year plus. So come.
If we do say so ourselves, right?
I'm not biased or anything.
We've been very topical, though. It's been fun because sometimes you'll see one of our topics, it'll just now pop up somewhere, someplace else, and go, oh, see, we really had our finger on the pulse, as they say.
That or we're clairvoyant or something.
I tell people, I wish I was a mind reader, and I wish I had a crystal ball, could see the future. Oh my gosh, so many people really want that in the dating world.
Yeah, but sometimes there's something very it takes the joy out of knowing what's coming, especially when romance.
Yeah.
There's something about exploring the unknown. As much as I know for myself at part of me, like, I just wish I knew ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, really? Do I want to know ahead of time?
No.
There's an adventure, there's a surprise. There's gifts in there. That's what you say.
Yeah, my best thing about all of that too is that I am really grateful eventually 100% of the time that I didn't know ahead of time. It does sometimes take a little longer for some of them. And what's the best is, what did I learn? What did I learn that I can now have a different outcome, or a different method in the middle, or a different way of approaching something that if I'd known ahead of time, I would have done something different. So that's what I'm doing now. I go, now I do know ahead of time because I learned it from the last thing. So it is sort of fulfilling. It just doesn't happen often when we think it should.
Well, the thing about that is, and it speaks to this, what we're talking about in a way, is, do we really learn from what happened in the past?
Yeah.
It was I used this quote before, George Santayana's quote, those who fail to learn from the history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
That was part of a history lesson. But the reality is, in relationships, oftentimes we're so busy going, I'm so done with that, I want to look at what's next. Meanwhile, what happened before might teach you what you don't want to do next.
Yes.
So part of the sabotage is like, learn the lessons that you've experienced in the past so you don't keep repeating them again and again and again.
And what it'll do is usually it'll keep us from going to some huge extreme. Because if we don't really think it through and don't really see, oh, here's a tweak or here's a different perspective, we'll just go, oh, I'm never doing it that way again. Well, we haven't really looked at what that way was. We've looked at the outcome, and we didn't really look at why the outcome happened. And so I think that is going to be a lot of our talk today.
It's the fine tune. It's not fine tuning is the wrong word, but it is the adjustments that we make to as course correction versus doing radically different. Although
Yes.
some people out there, admittedly, their their trail of broken relationships is such that they really want to have a transformational experience versus just a course correction.
Yeah. I'd prefer not to do it that way for me.
Right.
So certainly I was thinking a lot about this since we picked the subject, about what sorts of things I've done and my clients have done that have sabotaged their love life. And what I thought about was that not only that keeps you from finding love, because that's certainly a piece of it, also keeps the love that is in your life or has newly come into your life, what makes it go away. Things that you do have control over, which is not the other person, because we would love to have control over the other person, but sorry.
On the wish list, clairvoyance, controlling other people.
Oh, very high on the list. Yeah.
It's funny because I know people sometimes wish for that, but I know the downside of that. Mm-hmm. Taking control away from somebody in a relationship is not a healthy choice. Mm-hmm. You must just be on your own, because at least they can control your own experience. Mm-hmm. But relationship is meant to be that challenge because you were somebody else who you don't know and don't control.
Yeah.
Which is the wonder and the magic if it's a relationship you want to be in.
Yes. And you don't know until you allow yourself to be who you are and you allow them to be who they are, and see, does that blend? Does that match? Is that something that makes each of your lives better because of that?
Right.
So one of the ways I hear a lot from my female clients, especially about how they've sabotaged love not coming to them, is they are darn busy. They're busy with their grandchildren. They're busy with their hobbies. They're busy with their traveling. And I tell people traveling is a really great way to meet people, but they go in their little pod, they go with their friends, and they sit with their friends, and they do the activities with their friends, and they'll go, there weren't any single men on the cruise. I go, not one? Thousands, hundreds at least, people on this cruise. Yep. Not one single man to talk to?
Not in their bubble.
Not in their bubble of their single women that they went with.
Right.
Not in their bubble when they go to the park and are concentrating on their grandchildren. Said, often, especially in our age group, there are men at the park with grandchildren. If you don't look,
right,
you won't meet them.
That's the thing. It's so in our control to sort of, if we had eyes that would see, it's that sort of thing. Is that we don't, and this is going to flip the script a bit. Is that oftentimes we are so busy telling ourselves what we want to see that we don't see what's really there.
Yes. So there's another category of they have to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also got to be willing to look somewhere where you haven't maybe looked before.
That's true too.
Like taking a different route home from work, or when you go to the park, maybe walk a different side of the park, or other things. Like if you're on a cruise, you say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to split up for 2 hours and then come back and reconvene. You do something that changes the paradigm.
Yeah.
Because so many I know have been in the same routine and they start judging the world doesn't change to match their routine. It's like, no, you need to change your routine to match where the world is going to be because you want something different.
Yeah. And I want you to be comfortable and I want you to be safe.
Yes.
So you can check it out first, check out that part of the park with your friend, or check out that part of the cruise ship with a friend, and then go do it by yourself for 2 hours. Go take a class, go do the rock climbing, go take a painting class, go take a tour of the ship class. I thought it was really fun when they offered tours of the kitchen, and not everybody wants to go. So I ended up talking with all sorts of people I wouldn't have met any other way if I hadn't gone on a tour of something that I was really interested in, and they were interested in it too. And it was really a fun thing to go do. Mm-hmm. But I had to put myself out there to go do it.
Right. So I'm just trying to swing it back to the topic so we can make sure we stay on track, because there's a lot. We let's just be clear. This topic has many, many, many different routes and different directions. But the thing that speaks to, so bring the piece back on track, is that one of the ways we sabotage your love life is the comfort zone experience. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Is we want to stay safe, we want to stay in a bubble, stay contained, do the same thing again and again, and never change. Yeah. And the thing is, if you want something different, you generally got to do something different.
Yeah.
So one of the ways of not sabotaging your love life is don't stagnate in it.
Yes. Yes. Go try something new.
Yes.
As you said, a different route, a different park to walk in, a different class, a different meetup, a different day, go on a different day to the gym or to the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you'll see different people.
Right. And maybe it's something you've always wanted to do, you never did before, that suddenly you go, I want to start going with a hiking group, or go feed the homeless, or go like you do, go with horse, go ride horses. There's so many things that people don't even do because they wait for that person to show up to do them. Yeah. It's like, what if you go do that? What if you go do those things and that person will show up when you're doing it? Wouldn't that be easier?
And then you can do it together.
And you have fun at the same time.
Yeah. So changing your calendar a little. When I started out with, you're so busy, you filled up your life, which I'm really happy about. Is there room to try new things? Is there room to go out and explore? Is there room for a new person to fit in if your life is so packed with all these regular, habitual things that you like and you're having a good time doing them, but there's no crack, there's no opening to new experiences to come in and to meet a new person, and for that new person to feel like, well, they have time for me and they'll want to go do things with me too. Yeah. Because some people, their lives are so full, there's no room for another person to fit in, even though they say they want a relationship.
And in some cases, that's a defense too, because they don't want to have any space in that schedule to feel. And to be clear, there's some people out there done this, and I know some people watching this are going to go, "Oh shoot, that's me." Yeah. Is they've had such a painful past relationship, whether it is from, a death with a partner, or just a bad divorce or a bad breakup, whatever it is, and rather than working through what's in there that's hurt, they just want to throw themselves into their lives and fill up the can with everything they can possibly do. There's no room to, besides no room to meet anybody, there's no room to feel anything either. And frankly, one of the biggest things, and I've talked about this many times in my work as well with clients, is that the healing work must come first. One, because it stops you, it keeps you being wounded and toxic otherwise. And secondly, you won't meet anybody from a healthy place.
Yeah.
So doing the inner work first, and that's in a lot of the work we talk about that, having the vision of what you want to create, getting the vibration, all these different things to talk about is the inner work. Is you do what's in here first, then what's out there will start to match what you're looking for.
And the other piece that you brought up about how you don't want to feel the hurt from a past relationship, you don't want to acknowledge that maybe you feel a little lonely.
Yeah.
If you stay really busy, you can push aside. You still have that loneliness, but it's pushed aside and behind the door. Yeah. So if you stop being so busy, comes back to the front and you're like, oh, I guess I am lonely.
Yeah.
And so the good part about feeling the feelings of lonely is you go, well, I think I really want to do something about that because it's so uncomfortable. So allowing it to come up and not run your life, it can be motivating, which is really helpful to get us out of our comfort zone to go, well, I don't want to feel this way. What else can I do besides just push it aside? What can I do to have my life not feel so lonely, that I'm going to start doing something new in a way that I'll meet potentially a relationship?
And it's that willingness to choose. And also, I mean, yes, it can feel like a risk because it's suddenly you're no longer feeling as safe as you were.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you are willing to take that risk to step out into a new paradigm, again, it's all about newness. I mean, we're talking a lot of stuff is really that, like, shifting your focus to be something different than it was so you can have new opportunities. And facing those wounds, for want of a better word, is not dangerous, but it can feel very challenging. I understand that. It's one reason I love working with my clients, because the healing that happens and the space I love to hold for them is so deep and so rich that they transform their own experience of who they are.
Yeah.
And of course, part of my work, and I've said this before, is about loving themselves. And so this shifting of that wound, that healing the wounding and the shifting the paradigm, they fall in love with themselves.
Yeah.
And by the way, one little tip for anybody watching this: when you fall in love with yourself, really fall in love with who you are, not your ego, but who you are, you become much more attracted to other people.
So true. And I find when I do this work with my clients, they feel so much braver.
Yeah.
Because when you feel like you can't be your whole self and you feel like you have this missing part of you, you feel more cautious. That when you start healing that and you feel like your whole best person, you feel really brave. And when I suggest, well, let's think about something new you could try, they'll go, okay, I'm willing to do that. Where a month or two before that, they were just like, yeah, no, we're not even going there. We can't have that conversation.
Well, in a lot of cases, I know experience with clients, and it's a different flavor. Same thing though, is that the feeling of that wounding is almost like they're feeling so fragile, like they're going to shatter, you know. And that and what they feel like they're doing is like they're grabbing everything, holding it together so carefully because they're worried it's going to break.
Yeah.
That there's no bravery available because they're so scared of what can happen. So what you're talking about is true. Once they do that, first of all, they start breathing again and relaxing and opening up.
Yeah.
So then the brain is almost the automatic side effect because they're no longer fearful and so fragile inside. So that's magical stuff. So yeah, that's a great thing to do, is to be that brave and that whole, like, let's try some new things.
I know. And feeling okay enough if it doesn't work out. Because that's another reason we hold ourselves back. Well, what if it turns out badly? What if I look silly? What if nobody likes me? What if I don't like them? When you're feeling more whole and your bravery comes back up to the front, you're like, okay, nobody died. Okay. Yeah, that wasn't for me. I mean, I've had to try a number of meetup groups to find the ones that were matches for me. But I didn't stop, and I didn't think they were bad. I just knew they weren't for me. So I just went to the next one. And what I did sometimes glean from the one that wasn't right for me, I at least found one person who I went, oh, they seem like maybe my people. What else do they belong to?
Smart. Very smart.
So I wasn't going to say anything about why they were part of this group because I didn't understand it. It just wasn't for me.
But
they told me about a couple others. I was like, I hadn't even known about that. I'm going to go try that. So that was a very good benefit for going, even though they weren't my people. And whatever all women say, well, there weren't any men there. Okay. Women are really good resources. They love giving referrals. And if a woman tells you about something, you know she's checked it out. You know it's a good thing for all the reasons she's going to say. Still don't know if it's going to fit you. At least you've had somebody who's done some research and has references for you and might even go with you so you wouldn't have to go alone. But then you have to have gotten past the step of my fragile bubble. I was picturing duct tape when you were talking about how carefully it's all built together.
Well, it's duct tape, but it's not that strong. It's like
Yeah, because you
Scotch tape.
kept saying fragile. I was like, oh, that's so fragile, like a fine blown glass or something. And I don't want that being the thing that protects me. I want something that's much tougher than that, like my strength and my intuition that knows better.
Or something that doesn't need any protecting.
Yeah.
That's real freedom. That was what you're talking about, the bravery piece. That comes to the place of not needing to be protective as much.
Not as much.
I love what you said about the meetup groups. That's a really cool thing. And it's recognizing, and this is the thing, I had a conversation, I know it was about a month ago, about rejection. Because rejection is one of these really strange things that we take personally things when the reality is that when we get asked for something and we don't get it, we didn't actually miss out because we still are where we started. But we put energy on it because they said no, that something's wrong with us. Yeah. And I'm still learning this one. I'm not perfect by any means, but recognizing more and more that, like, you go to the meetup group, it doesn't fit. It doesn't make it. It's not right, wrong. It's just a matter of that doesn't fit. Okay, great, move on, next one. And if you meet somebody, and I've been on a few dates from the dating apps, as I mentioned last week, and definitely have felt this, like, it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's nothing to do with me, nothing to do with them, just doesn't match, and it's okay. And so that level of elevation of our response to what happens is part of the evolution, part of the growth. It's like the more you can raise your elevation to be more responsive versus reactive, as I've talked about before as well. It's such a transformation, because then life becomes much easier, because it's more for us to play and explore versus being driven from that little no and do that, that whole fear-based thing.
Yes. You don't get discouraged. You go, oh, well, that just didn't work. I have a very close friend who's a sales trainer, and she's very clear about there's going to be way more no's than yeses. If you're going to go sell anything, yourself, a service, a thing, you got to know and accept way more no's than yeses. It's just how the world is. Everybody in the whole world doesn't need it, doesn't think they need it, can't afford it, doesn't want it. It's not personal.
No.
So she is a big, big proponent about it's not personal. And you can certainly hone your skills. It's so not personal that they're not picky most of the time, because it's not their thing. So because I don't want to be part of this meetup isn't saying that they're bad people, just not a match for me. And it's not saying I'm a bad person. I'm not a match. I would be just as much not a match for them, trust me, as they would not be a match for me. I'm clear about it. It's both ways. It is so not just one way. And it's the same way in the dating world, that if you're not a match, it's because you both need to move on to somebody else that would be a better match.
And one of the things, and I haven't done this with the dates I've been on, just to be transparent, but it's like you were saying about, the other women that you meet might be great referrals, is that when you meet somebody and it's not a match for you, but what if their sister or their brother or their partner or their friend or their neighbor, they go, hang on, someone I want you to meet. You never know. So wouldn't it be better to sort of make rather than rejecting other people, just going, it's nice to meet you, but doesn't seem like a workable thing. It's all great. And then you suddenly find out that maybe they know the person you really want to meet.
It's happened. I know it's happened. So then the next step is, if you are in a relationship or having something brand new, how are all the ways that we sabotage those? Oh my gosh. The famous thing is, I'm going to leave you before you have a chance to leave me.
On the extreme level is where the partner's going to die first. I was in a clubhouse room yesterday. Someone was talking about this, about how there's been statistical studies that men choose in long-term relationships, men will generally die first because they don't want to be left behind. Because they don't want to be left behind.
Oh, very much.
So that, and I know you've gone through what you have with yours. That wasn't. I don't believe that was that thing generally. But recognizing that relationships are such an interesting paradigm for us to be in, because for many of us, and up until years ago before I started this journey, myself too, we don't get taught how to be in a relationship.
No.
Which is, I'm like, They don't teach relationship skills in like, you know, class 101 at school or at college. Unless you take a particular elective about relationships. No. So we get to be adults and start dating based on what criteria? What we saw as a kid, which is what we took about. Exactly. So if our parents,
was not helpful.
Our parents may not have been the best teachers intentionally. Yeah. So this whole thing about how when we're in a relationship, how we sabotage it because we don't know any different.
Yeah.
You know, the paradigms we're in terms of relationship, I'm almost amazed that any relationship works at all.
I know.
Because there's all the stuff that comes up. Well, and again, as you said way at the beginning about awareness being the first piece, about becoming aware of ourselves. In a relationship, so many people I know in a relationship are so unconscious of their own patterns, their own stuff.
Yep.
And especially when something goes wrong or there's an argument or there's an upset, it's always the other person because we're not looking at ourselves and seeing ourselves clearly.
Yep.
You know, I know this is something that when Dr. Tari was on 2 weeks ago with me. That was her thing about conscious relationship. Are you conscious in a relationship? That's the other side of this. This is the thing we're talking about. This is a clue that maybe you're not conscious in your relationship because you're sabotaging it.
Yes. Well, and we'll quote our mutual friend Allison Armstrong, who says, yes. What's their 100% and what's your 100%?
She's a great way of putting stuff.
Oh, yes, because we need to own our stuff. And if you can't figure it out yourself, if you're like, why does this keep happening over and over and over? Which I hear so often when people will call me, they'll go, I've finally had it that the same thing keeps happening over and over and I can't figure it out myself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I have a client right now that's now moved past her 5th date. She had never had anything last after 5 dates. I know.
That's pretty cool.
Now, we still don't know what will happen in the future. And she broke her record, which is so exciting. Yeah, it's very exciting. So that's the thing. If you keep saying, wow, why does this same thing keep happening? You really need to look at yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I shared this show recently. I know I shared it before at some point in time. I very clearly saw when I did the same thing the 3rd time in a row, the same, like 3 different women, same experience. That was kind of like ding, ding, ding. That's me, not them. I mean, just the basic level is like I made a certain choice to pick those 3 women, which was definitely my thing.
Yeah.
But yes, they brought things to the relationship that challenged me or put me in a place of what stirred me, what I'm looking for, that showed me my patterns. I'll put it that way.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, thankfully, I mean, I've been doing the work for a long time, so I knew after that point it was time to look in the mirror and look at myself and go, okay, so what is it I was doing that was causing that result?
Yes.
Because it's not the result I wanted.
No.
And they were just the gifts that showed up to show me where I wasn't looking clearly.
Yes. So that's what I figure. It's my incentive to finally go, oh, there's something new I need to look at. There's something new that I'm not getting, I'm not seeing, because it keeps showing up and going, hello, pay attention. This is not working. This is uncomfortable. Well, what do I need to do differently? What course do I need to change a little? What thought process I'm changing a little? My approach to dating a little different. I mean, that's always, and we're never done. There's always correcting that we're doing, always adjusting we're doing. And that's the most exciting part when you go, oh, it's not personal. I'm not a bad person. It's a learning curve. It's a constant learning curve. It's like we're in school learning about ourselves all the time. And if you approach it that way, you go, well, this is kind of exciting. What am I going to learn now? And what things better in my life are going to be because of that? Because the other thing is, as you learn to not sabotage your love life, it might be that it'll translate to other parts of your life. Have you thought about maybe it's that you always have a fight with your neighbor, or you have a problem with a job, or a problem with a place that you volunteer, or you can't find a place to volunteer. I mean, there's so many things that translate across the board that when you figure out, oh, I have this pattern of sabotaging my love life, what other places does the threads connect?
Absolutely.
It'd be so helpful.
Well, because the thing is, a couple of things on that, and add to your list of what you started with, is definitely like what are we telling ourselves and what are we believing about ourselves?
Yeah.
Just putting from circumstances. Because and one of my teachers in my master's program talks about how Earth is a school and the goal is to graduate.
Yeah.
So that viewpoint changes everything. It's like, if I learn this, then I'm going to be doing better than I was before. Because yes, we learn and grow. And then, as you said, be able to take that and translate it into your business relationships or your family dynamics or just your interpersonal skills. It's going to be a huge transformation. And I know my life's changed a lot because of that. So I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a client that was always complaining along with all the dating and love stuff we were talking about, the traffic and how rude everybody was. And so as we were adjusting that, she decided she liked men better. Men were not bad people. There'd been some bad men. And there'd been some bad male bosses, but not all bosses. She now had a good boss. That I started thinking, when you see a man behind the wheel, assume he's going to let you in when you turn on your blinker. Just assume. We're not going to have any judgment about whether it happens. Just assume. She finally, it wasn't right away. I want to say 3 weeks. She's like, everybody's letting me in. I said, why do you think that is? Do you think they all got different driving lessons? I think it's your attitude, honey. Outside. She goes, really? It could affect traffic? I said, not all the time, but I'll tell you, the majority of the time when I turn on my blinker, people let me in. It's so rare. And there's time when they don't. I said, God, there must be some new thing they've taught in driver's ed that when somebody turns on their blinker, they're supposed to speed up. Because I was amazed. It started, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I noticed, I was like, well, that's a really weird trend. But I don't take it by like, oh, if you're in such a big hurry, go ahead. I'm moving myself, time to move over. But I mean, I have huge trucks that wait and blink their lights at me. And I have people that slow down to let me in because I assume every time they're going to let me in. And so now that she's doing it, people are letting her in. So when you change the way that you're thinking about people, situations, love, men, women.
Exactly.
It was fun because I thought, well, maybe it's just me that I'm so darn lucky, but she turned it around. And so I was like, yeah, how about that? We're just going to suggest that to more people because you're already being on the road even now because things are more back to normal with more traffic. That why add frustration? So if you just go, people are going to be nice. And if they're not, I'm glad I don't go home to them. That the both of them really will be lovely with this attitude. I know it was really a fun thing to have her because I kept waiting. I'm like, ooh, it's not happening. Maybe this isn't going to work for her. I don't know. But
it's a great experiment.
Like, oh yeah, I have to tell you, it really is working. Pretty fun, huh?
Yeah. I want to speak. There's a little thing I want to talk about, but do that when we come back from the break.
Yes, it's time for the break, and you can watch all the very informative, interesting commercials with really great music too. So we'll be right back.
See you in a minute.
Hi, it's Barry and Christine. Let's talk about dating, and we're talking about how you sabotage your love life. Oh,
Oh boy.
I know, I know. And sometimes we just like, I don't want to be in charge of everything all the time. That's just too grown up.
Well, in a good relationship, when you tell your partner that, sometimes it's okay. They'll say, "Go ahead, just be a kid. I'll take care of everything."
Wouldn't
So
that be
that'd be wonderful.
kind of nice to take turns with that?
Something I'll speak to, because we talked about it before the break. That thing you said with your client about having her basically change her languaging so she'd expect things to be positive, like with cars, making room for her to pull in. It's something that we talk about. I know we talked about it before, but we'll say it again because it's important to remind people, is that watch what we tell ourselves. That I've had it so many times with clients, and I mean, in their intake forms, they send the forms to me. They go like, there's no good men out there. Like, have you never seen a good man anywhere? It's like the things we tell ourselves because of our personal experience, which has been I can say this, a small sliver of what real life is about. But also because we're not willing to change how we see things. Because again, it's at the beginning about awareness and seeing things more clearly. When we can see things more clearly, we can start choosing more clearly too.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, what is it we're going to tell ourselves going forward? That's different. Like saying, will people let me in traffic? So say, yes, people let me in traffic. And yeah, as you said, some of the time it doesn't work, but more of the time it does. So why not? So the same is true. It's like, so say there's no good men out there. It's like, well, one question could be like, I wonder where the good men are. Like, even make it a question where you can start wondering, so your mind can actually lead you somewhere you might meet some, for example. Or for
And
the
pay
men,
attention.
women. Exactly.
When it says, go try this. Really, I've never been there. Why would I go there? Go try it. You never know.
Because you asked the question.
And they said, okay, here's an answer.
Yep.
Yeah. Changing the way you speak to yourself. I mean, I know you've said this before to people, of when you hear how we speak to ourselves and you say, so would you talk to your closest friend that way? Would you talk to your pet that you love? Would you talk to your child, your grandchild, the way that you talk to yourselves? Often not.
No.
So to be thinking a much more kind, benevolent, grace-filled, loving way to talk to yourself. And one of them is, of course, there's nice men and women out there. And of course, I deserve to meet them. And of course, I deserve to be loved by them and to love them back. What do I do next to meet them? What do I do next to be in their company? What do I do next to bypass the people that aren't? Because I'm not saying we're in la la land and there's not some crappy people out there. What I want people to hear is you can make some conscious choices about how you speak to yourself and how you think, what your inside thoughts are, so that I tell people it's kind of like Tai Chi, that when the yucky people come by, you just go, whoa, and you just keep their momentum and you keep walking on by, hun. There's nothing to see here, just move on. And so then when the people who would be a match for you, that are good and caring and flawed like us all, but really are also doing their work, because that's what we all want, is somebody who's also doing their work, they'll just show up front and center and you go, oh yeah, okay, I want to spend time talking to you.
It's funny you said that. That's all Tai Chi thing. I love that, because that's the thing, is that when you start to get clear about what you want, and you then basically set up a request, intention, a call to the universe at large, so to speak, about you want to meet great people, or you're done with meeting bad boys, whatever the thing is, your term is.
Yeah.
If you'll notice, your radar starts to become more sensitive to those things.
Yes.
So when you're out in the world, you'll notice yourself avoiding certain situations and you don't even know why.
Yeah.
But part of your consciousness is working on, okay, that's where you don't want to go. Well, let's go over this way.
Yes.
And then you start noticing, like you said, you start attracting more of the people you want to be around, whether it's partners or friends, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because you put up your programming to tell the universe what you want, which is bringing your programming conscious, because a lot of this sabotage we talked about is how subconscious everything is, because we're running autopilot. And a lot of times we don't want to face the truth that we're not actually asking for what we want. Right. So to bring that front and center and say, this is what I want to create, this is where I want to go, this is who I want to meet.
Yeah.
And then, like, say, it's almost like putting in an order at the restaurant.
And
you're saying, like, this is what I want. This, and this. and give it all to the universe, and then watch what happens. People start letting you in traffic, and people do all these different things. So it's that those steps.
So important. And to go back to the beginning where we talked about how people would make these big, huge shifts, you know, they 180 degrees, or you resist. And there's the saying that's really accurate, that what you resist persists, that it's not resisting, it's letting it go by. Don't mess with it when you think, oh yeah, there's that thing again. Okay, just letting it go by, because pretty soon it won't show up anymore.
Yeah.
But first you might have to just let it go by, but don't push back against it. There's no need to push back against it at all.
In fact, it's like where you put your energy. You know, you put your energy where you want to go versus if you focus on what you don't want, you're going to say, I don't want this. And what you're going to see is this, nothing else.
Yeah.
So
True.
Yeah, I mean, was it Henry Ford said, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
But also, I know I'm throwing different things from the teachings. I've been studying a lot, like in law of attraction. You know, it's like the universe does not understand negatives. By saying you don't want this or you want this is what you get.
Yep.
So it's important to be clear about what it is you want. And so you're clear saying, you know, what I want is this, and this, which is great. So don't focus on I don't want that, because what you're going to see is that.
It really feels important to say this. So my mom told me when I was a kid that often people will say, like if a child's going to run out in the street, they say, don't run. They hear run.
Yep.
So you say, stop.
Yes.
Go this way. You tell them what you want them to do. You don't include what you don't want them to do. That's why in a profile, don't say what you don't want, because it'll keep showing up. I don't know why this keeps showing up, because I look at your profile and it says, I don't want scammers. I don't want friends with benefits. Well, don't put it in there. Say what you do want. I want a long-term relationship. I want somebody who's a real person. Say you're going to check out their profile and their pictures. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Don't say what you don't want in writing in your profile, because the algorithm's going to send it to you because it's in your profile. It's pretty wild how that works, but it's real. I've seen it proven over and over and over.
This is the thing where I think it's so important I know we're definitely underlining this point, make sure people get it.
I know.
It's like, but even if you go on Google and do searches for stuff, if you look for, I'm looking for not this, you'll see this as your list of what comes up on Google. So just to be clear, that's the way our mind works too. So it's helpful to remember that you want to ask for what you do want, rather than to avoid what you don't want, because that's going to show up. Whatever you focus on is going to be showing up. And so that thing with kids is like, it's true, because to be honest, most of our desires are based in like a 5-year-old consciousness inside ourselves. You know,
it's true.
That 5-year-old will run out in traffic unless you say stop. So it's good to be giving it positive direction.
And you pointed out something so interesting, because I've noticed Google, which is really how our brains work a lot, that if you did the I don't want and it shows up, it's going to go look for a whole bunch of other things that fit this thing you don't want. And that's what your brain's going to keep doing. Why does this keep showing up? Because you kept saying it, and you keep saying, I don't want this. I don't want this. What do you want? What would you like instead? What would you like that you like? What would you like more of? And switch it to what is the positive thing.
Yeah.
Because you will see, as the woman with the traffic, it turns around. It's kind of magical how it happens. I mean, I know the logical reason and I know the practical way to teach it. And I'm going to say it kind of feels magical when it happens, which is kind of fun. But then I want you to take credit for it. That's the part I really, because sorry, I'm asking you to take credit for this. Isn't working out really well. Oh, well, kind of sucks. When it works out well, I want you to take 100% high five. I'm going to high five you. I want you to high five you, because you did it. You turned it around.
That's the real benefit of doing this work. It's not about us; it's about the clients. And when they get it, and we get to witness it, it's so rewarding. It's like my child has learned a lesson.
I know. Good job.
But it feels that great because it's recognizing that their inner child has got a hand on the reins now, can actually do stuff, and it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
And once it happens, you're like, oh, okay, I know it's going to be scary and hard. Give me the next thing. Because the next thing then works, and you're like, ooh, look how powerful I am, which then gives you more self-confidence, which then gives you more bravery, which then gives you a chance to go out and do the new thing, which is why you and I both say, we get it. The first time's going to be really scary. And the first time you might not even know it, that there's even a thing. You don't even know that you're sabotaging. And wow, when we get a hold of you and we help you change some of this way that you think, oh my gosh, just let it happen the first time. Then you are hooked. It's a nice thing to be addicted to, right?
I would say it's the best thing to be addicted to.
Improving your life, improving the way you think, improving the way you treat yourself, improving the outcomes that are happening to you.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the best?
That's the thing that if I'd known 35 years ago, 36 years ago, no, it was 84, 37 years ago when I started this journey. God.
Yeah, when you were 5.
yeah, exactly. You're very young. Yeah. If I told myself now where I am now, back then I wouldn't have believed it.
No.
But at the time, it was the perfect place to be. So the recognition for those who want to work with either one of us, is that it may not look that good yet, but trust me, it's worth the journey.
So, I mean, we are here to tell you that it is so worth it. I equate it to my friends that have gotten PhDs because they're like, they think it's a really good idea, and then they're in the middle and think, whose idea was this? And they should be shot. I can't believe I'm doing this, and it's horrible and awful and terrible. And then when they're done, they're like, I'm really glad I did that.
Right.
So that's how I feel about this work. That you think, oh, it's okay, I'm going to try this, and then you're in the middle, like, oh, sometimes some of it's not very fun, and oh my gosh, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And then you get to move to a place in your life of more contentment. That's a word I've heard so much a lot lately. I'm so much more content. I don't feel all that angst and anxiety. I feel capable of moving to the next level without all that fear that I had before. I feel stable. I feel sure. I feel like I could just handle the next thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Isn't that a nice way to feel?
Your words like being relaxed, being comfortable, being confident, being in love with themselves. I mean, that, again, I keep coming back to self-love is so key, but they really start to appreciate who they are because of what they've been through, but also where they can go now.
Yeah.
That's the magic.
It's what gets us up every day. One of the many things, because we have lots of things in our lives along with this. As far as our career choice, oh my, it just floats our boat every day.
Indeed it does.
So if you want to come do this great work with us, the way that you can get a hold of us is, my website is www.theperfectcatch.com. You can click on what's holding you back from love and set up a complimentary conversation with me, and we can talk about, well, what's been happening that you don't like and what would you like to be differently, and we can come up with a plan. You can also privately email me through Christine@theperfectcatch.com. You can also reach me and read about me on social media on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube and Instagram. I would never do this without you, Barry, because I always forget something. I can count on my fingers, but I don't know what to do with that last finger until you tell me.
I'm glad I can remember them because it's the way it is. But
Thank you. I know you're really good at that. So please tell people how they can reach you.
So they can find me on my website, which is barryselby.com. As I said last week, I've got a revamped site, so it's still going through tweaks in it, but it does have a plethora of ways on the front page where you can click on Let's Chat all over the place. Lots of choices. Yay. But it's the same place, which is have a chat with me. So I do offer a complimentary 30-minute consult, conversation, chat, so we can talk about where you are, what you're looking for, if I can help you, if you want to work together, stuff like that. You can email me at barryselby.com, and on social media, I'm mostly Barry Selby on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Clubhouse. On Facebook, it's Barry Selby, the author, and on Instagram, it's the real Barry Selby. I think that's everything.
Yeah.
So come follow us, and definitely make sure you follow our show too.
Oh, yeah, because we're here every week at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and the times in between. And we always are talking about intriguing and interesting and helpful and informative conversations about dating. So most people think they know how to date, and they're discovering they have no idea, and they keep wondering how to do it better. And that's our job, is to help you solve that.
We're here to inspire and entertain you to a degree.
We do both things, huh?
Yeah, we do.
Because I think we're inspiring and entertaining. So
I think so.
Yeah. We have fun together.
We do. And we'll see you again next week doing more of the same.
Okay. Bye for now.